everybody, it's Tamara from Prairie Town Girl here on Etc. Eyes, and I have a very special project to do with you today. It looks like a regular fabric cover junk journal, but there's something special about this one. Take a look at this. You can change your cover. And it becomes a whole new journal. Look at that, ta-da! So I'm going to show you how I put it all together right from scratch. As usual, I'm sort of throughout this video trying to figure things out as I go along, but in the end, this is where we get to. I've got some beautiful printables from Caroline's crafty that are going to be inside, and yeah, I'm going to show you all my tips and tricks for putting this one together. So stay tuned. All right, so let's get started. So here's what I started with. It's a cracker box, and as I was about to throw this into the recycling bin, I thought, hey, that would be a pretty neat shape for a journal. So I grabbed it back and put it on my pile of boxes I have to make journals out of. Some other things I've got here ready to go are my fabric. I've got two different kinds of cotton that I had rescued from the bargain bin at the fabric store quite some time ago. You don't need two different kinds of pattern. I just happened to have these and I thought they would be pretty together, so that's what I'm going with. I've got my little cards that I want to be able to slip into my front cover, and these come from the English Rose Garden paper pad, which I got at Michael's I think about a year ago or so. So this is an old pad, you probably can't find it anymore, but I know it was also a very popular pad, so you might have it in your closet or something similar. If you don't have the little cards like this, you can make your own, of course, and you can make your window any size you want and put anything you want inside of it. So just to sort of get myself started and figuring things out, I made a little bit of a template, and I have some measurements, and I'll give you my measurements, but I think, you know, everybody's box that you use is going to be different. So, you know, adjust accordingly. So I'll just let you know right now, 1, 2, 3, 4. So my box itself is 4 inches wide and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 inches long. The rest doesn't matter because we're going to cut the box up, but that helps you to understand. My window is about 3/4 of an inch in from each side. Of course, you can make it smaller. And it's about 1/4 of an inch smaller than the size of my cards. So I think I wrote some stuff down here. My card is 3 by 4, so my window is 2 3/4 by 3 3/4. And then about 1/2 an inch above the top of my window, I've got a little slit, and that's about 1 inch from the top. I'm not sure that I might just put a pocket behind instead. I think that might be easier. I'm still trying to work it out a little bit, but that might be the way to go. So that's what I have to get started. I'm also using some stitch witchery, and if you're not a sewer, you might not be familiar with it. It's just a fusible webbing that you put in between 2 layers, you iron it, and then it sticks everything together. So normally sewers will use this for quick hemming and that kind of thing. I did a little test, and I make sure to test it on the glossy side as well as the rough side of my cardboard, and it works great. If I really wanted to, I could pull it up, but I don't want to. So it sticks really nicely, actually. So that's the glue that I'm going to try to use for most of for the most part of getting my fabric onto my box, because with wet glue I'm going to warp the cardboard and it's going to seep through the fabric, and I just don't want to deal with all of that. Glue stick isn't going to be strong enough. I don't have Fabri-Tac. This is probably what Fabri-Tac is meant for. Gluing fabric, I would imagine. But I just want to stay away from the wet glue today and try out my stitch witchery. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is open up my box, open up both ends, and find the side that it opens up on. There, that was easy. And I want to keep I want to keep the measurements of these sides, so I'm going to cut along this one in the middle. I might need to clean it up a little bit, but it's nice to have these guides on the folds to go by. And I'm going to cut off the flaps as well. Okay, now you could just make a journal like using it like this, but I'm not going to do that. I'm also going to cut down the middle here because I want to add space for a spine in the middle. So I'm going to have to either use another section of this or some other cardboard that I have. The other thing you can do, and I'm trying to decide if I want to do it, is to double up your cardboard. So to use the other two sides of your box. That would make your journal much more sturdy. I think I want to leave mine a little bit floppy. I like that look and feel when I'm doing it with fabric. If I were doing it with paper, if I were covering it with paper, I would maybe double up, but I think I'm going to leave it like this. And I'm going to get a strip that I can put down the middle for my spine. So just hang on one sec. Okay, so I got another piece of cardboard and or from a box, and I did this one about, I think this is 3/4. Yeah, this is 3/4 of an inch wide. I don't want to make a really big, thick journal. I just want to put a couple, maybe 1 or 2 signatures inside, so it doesn't need to be super thick. And I used my little template here, and I drew my window on what will be my cover. So I'm going to take my craft knife and I'm going to cut that out. And then we will get started on figuring out how to put the fabric down. Okay, so I've got my pieces, and this is going to be my, I don't know if you can tell on camera, this is a little bit of a bluey turquoise with a floral print on it. And this is going to be the outside fabric. And so I've just laid my pieces down. I've got about, I didn't even measure, it's about 1/2 inch or so around, and of course a little bit, like, I don't know, about 1/8 of an inch in between your pieces here. Nothing's glued down. I'm just using this as a guide so I can cut my fabric out. I've cut off the selvage edge. If you're not a sewer, the selvage edge is that finished edge at the bottom of your fabric. I just cut that off because what I want to do, I think what I want to do is I'm going to sew, once I've got this all sort of glued together, I'm going to sew around the edge and I'm going to fringe the edge a little bit to give it that shabby chic kind of look. So it's not going to be perfect, which I love, because it means you don't have to cut everything perfectly either. You can be a little, you can make mistakes, you don't have to measure everything perfectly. It's all good. Okay, so we can move that out of the way. And I think just to prepare, I'm going to get a piece of this other fabric. This is, as now you can maybe see it a little bit more. It'll show up a little bit more. This is almost the same print, but in an ivory on ivory. And let's see here. I'm going to cut something the same size. So I don't need to lay all my pieces out, I can just use my fabric. Now, just want to make sure I'm sort of on the grain line. The grain line is like the what you call maybe the weft, where you're, so that your threads are going straight up and down. And I want that so that when I go to fringe it, I don't get a weird angle on the fabric you're almost like tearing the fabric, and it wants to go with the grain line. So if your grain line isn't straight, you're going to get a weird edge, which again isn't the end of the world. You can make it work. Okay, I have to stand up for this cut. Alright, so I've got my insides and my outside, and now I just need to figure out how I'm going to put it all together. I did, just in case I wanted to do this, I have, remember that little slit I was telling you about earlier? I did cut a third cover, just a fraction, like a sliver in from the original size cover, and my idea is maybe it would sit behind like this, well, like this, and then this little slit would allow you to slip your card inside. So sort of be like that. I'm not 100% convinced that's the way I want to go, though. I may just, the other way you could do this is put a fabric pocket behind that. Okay, I think I figured out what I need to do. Took me a while, but I think I figured it out. Okay, so first of all, this printed side is going to be on the outside of my journal, and for a couple of reasons. Mainly because this fabric is a little darker and it's going to cover up any printing. If you have light fabric, you can just use a little bit of acrylic paint or something like that to cover it, or even glue some paper over top of it first, just to kind of black out the print. But I think I'm going to be okay. It might peek through a little bit, but you have to like really look for it. So I'm not going to worry about that. So I've laid it down so that my outside is facing me, and I've got it on the back side, the bad side of my inside fabric. So what I need to do is take my Stitch Witchery and basically place it all along where I want it to glue down, and then I'm going to take my iron and I'm going to glue my pieces to my fabric. Don't worry about the window just yet. Let's just worry about gluing the fabric down, okay? So yeah, so this is going to be a little fiddly because I'm working. Okay, So what I'll do is work on it this way. Lay it, because you can't lay it and glue and then put your fabric on top, because you'll get glue all over your iron. You don't want that, trust me. So just cut pieces, sort of almost like if you had a snail glue. That's where you're putting this stuff. All over the inside. And it's okay if it overlaps. And you want to especially get around the edges, anywhere there's an edge. And I think what I'll do, just to make this easier to handle, I'm going to take this over to the ironing board first, and then I will lay my fabric on top, iron it, and then I'll bring it back and I will do the next section. Okay, sorry about the change in angle, but I've brought you over to my ironing board so you can see how I've laid out my Stitch Witchery strips. And now I'm just going to lay my fabric on top. Just going to give it a little bit more of a press here. I'm going to very gently try to lay this on top without moving anything. And this is another good reason to have a lot of sort of overhang, because you might not get it exactly perfect the first time. Okay, hopefully that'll stay. And now I just lay my iron on gently, and you can use a little steam, it should be okay. It doesn't have to be perfect because I'm going to sew around the edge anyway and get it all in place. This is just to sort of hold it all. Okay. There we go. So that's going to be the inside. So before I continue doing the outside, I want to cut this window open. So let's go back over to the other table and we'll do that. So I think the easiest way to do this is to sort of cut an X in here. I don't know if my craft knife will cut in here. Let's see. No, my knife isn't sharp enough because I use it on fabric, on paper all the time. But that's okay. So just cut a little hole in there. Don't be scared. And cut an X right up to the corner. Right up to each corner. And we're going to fold this to the other side, and then we'll have a nice clean edge. And you can cut off some of this excess in the middle here. We don't need all of that. There we go. So this is going to fold over to this side, and that's going to give us a good edge here. Yep. And I'll just use some more Stitch Witchery to go around and do that. So I'll be right back. Okay, so it's all glued down and it's nice and clean on the inside. Which may not matter because we'll probably cover that up anyways, but it's nice to know it's a finished edge and it's not going to get caught on anything. So we're basically going to do the exact same thing, but now it's all sort of stabilized, and then we'll put the outside fabric down. Okay, so I've got my front on there. I just have to cut out the window just like we did on the other side. I got my little pointy scissors here though that I think will help me get right into the corner. And I'm going to cut away quite a bit of the excess because I don't want it flopping around on the inside. We are going to cover it, but it's just easier this way. Okay, so this is going to come around to the inside. And I'm just going to use more of my stitch witchery and get that down there. I should mention that if you go to a sewing store and ask for stitch witchery, I'm not sure, like my roll is really old. It's been in my sewing box for ages and ages, and I really don't use it because I am a sewer, so I don't really like gluing my hems and things like that. So I don't even know if that's what it's still called. I think there's another name for it these days, and you can get it, like mine's on a little tape roll, but you can get it by like in yardage, and I think it's like, I think it might be called Wonder Under or something like that. There's lots of different brand names for it. So just if you go to a sewing store and you're not a sewer, just explain it's for, you know, anybody that works in a sewing store will know exactly what you mean right away. Yeah, this is a fun new way of using it. I didn't realize it could stick other things other than fabric, so this is a whole new world for me. So let me just go and stick down these little tabs, and then we'll get to figuring out this inside image part. Okay, so I was playing around with what I want to do on the inside here for my pocket, and I've got my little piece here that we could cover in fabric. I would cover both sides and I would put it down, and then that would allow me to put my cards in. Something about that's not sitting right with me though. I don't really want to do it this way. I feel like my card is going to get in there, it's going to get stuck, it's going to get crooked. I don't know. I just feel like this isn't really working for me. So what I did instead is I took a piece of this inner fabric and I cut a pocket a little bit bigger than the window. So it's about 10.5 by 3.5-ish. And it's, so then I took the width, the length, and folded it in half like that to get my piece. So this is actually double. I hope that makes sense. And then I just sewed all the way around the edges. I didn't even like turn and fold and make a proper pocket or anything. I just left the raw edges. And so now what I'm going to do is take more of my stitch witchery, and I'm going to put that around the edges, only on the sides and the bottom. Do not do the top. If you do the top, you won't be able to put your cards in. So just do the sides and the bottom, and then that way that'll give us a nice flexible, easy to access pocket from the top. And if you don't have a card on the inside for whatever reason, you still have that pretty fabric showing through the window. Okay, so I'm just going to go and iron that together, and I'll be right back, and we'll start doing the outside. Okay, my pocket is down. It's all stitched and glued in, and we can try out my little pocket here. I did have to cut down the edges just a sliver, just to make sure they would fit, but there you go. Isn't that pretty? And then when I get tired of that, or I want to use it for something else, then I can put a new one in. And then we got a whole new journal. All right, now I just need to finish it off and put the signatures in. So the last step to finishing the journal cover itself is to sew around the edge and fringe it. But before I do that, as I normally do, I forgot to put in my ties for my closure because I get so excited making the cover and everything, I forget to add those. So I've got a scrap of my inside fabric, and I'm just going to cut a couple of strips off of this. I don't know, I'm not even gonna, I'll just sort of eyeball it. And I think, oh, not sure if I will, the smart thing would be to sew them. I guess that's what I'll do. I will, and normally, like when I'm really sewing for clothing and stuff like that, I would put right sides together, sew down the long end and flip it inside out, or right side out. But for this journal, because I want it to be really shabby, I'm just going to do wrong sides together and then stitch down that long edge, and then I'll sort of try to fringe out the long edge a little bit just to make it really shabby. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to pull back my inside cover just a little bit here, and luckily, like I mentioned, that stitch witchery, it's permanent in that it will hold for you, but if you need to open it up, you can. So I can just very gently open that up and slip this in, and then when I sew around the edge, this will stay put. Just make sure you don't put it in so far that you can see it in your window, right? So I will do my ties, add them, and sew around the edge, and I'll be right back. Okay, so getting pretty close to finished. So I went around the outside edge twice. I sewed it all down, and I even went down the spine, and I even went around the three sides of my little window here as well. And then I added my closure strips as well. And I started fringing my edge here. I think I might need to cut down my fabric a little bit more. I think it might be a little bit too thick, but just thought I would show you quickly. If you're using a cotton, this is super easy, and I do have a video from a little while back that I will link up above on how different ways that you can add fringing, but this is the easiest, especially when you have cotton. You just sort of, if you have a raw edge, you just start pulling the threads, and as long as you're just pulling in one way, you're gonna see the cross threads come out as your fringe. So I'm going to continue working on that a little bit more on my own. I'm going to figure out just how much I want. One more step before we start to fill this. I decided I want mine to be sort of a traveler's notebook style, where I can put my signatures in and take them out when I'm done. I think that makes it the most versatile. So I've got these eyelets I'm going to use. And I've already marked where I want them. Let's see here. 2 tops, 2 bottoms, whoops, 4 tops. I need another bottom. There we go. Okay. And I'm very, very lucky. I have a crocodile which helps me to do this. So I'm going to put it on the biggest. I know that my eyelets will work with the biggest hole punch setting. And just so that you know where to put your holes, I'm sure you guys have all done this before, but I know that my page is going, this is what I'm going to be using for my pages, and so I want my holes to be on the top and bottom of that, so that when my thread comes through or my elastic comes through, it's not going to squash the tops and bottoms of my pages. So I'm going to make my hole. And it goes through so nicely with this. You don't have to struggle at all. Top and I guess that's the top. Top and bottom. Okay, and now I want to put in my eyelet. So now I'm going to move my little gadget up to the top. And I've got it all set and ready to go. I'm going to put that on the outside. And the little piece here I'm going to put on the inside. And then I'm just going to squash it all together. Whoops. And sometimes it sticks in my crocodile. If I squeeze it hard enough, oh, that one's pretty good. It'll usually come right out. There we go. Oh, that's not bad. Look at that. Where is it? Here we go. There. So I could do two, I'm going to have two signatures, so you could do two across, but I felt like my my spine isn't wide enough for that, and I think I can get my elastic cording. I can get two sets through this eyelet. It should all be good. Okay, this will be my workout for today. Oh, see that one? That one's stuck. But there we go. Sometimes it just takes a little tug and then it pops right off. There. Okay, now I don't have the right color of elastic cording, so I'm going to have to settle for this blue. I think it's a pretty close match. These are the colors I have, or black, which I don't think will go nicely at all. So I'm just going to, I'm going to cut more than I need. I don't know how much that is. That's maybe a meter, I'm not sure. Cut two of them for two signatures. And just put both ends through. There we go. Now I just have to make sure I tie the right one to the right one. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to tie this nice and tight. That one can maybe be a little tighter. I'll fix that after. And then I'm going to use these gorgeous printables I got from Caroline's Craft Tree. She put out a call for design team for this month, and I got to pick these gorgeous botanical prints. They're so great. So I just threw a couple of signatures together using them, but I'm going to go back and do all kinds of pockets and other things to add to them. But I just want to sort of try this out and see if this all fits together nicely. Woohoo, it's coming together, coming together. All right, so it needs a little bit more work still, but you get the idea of where it's going. So I'm going to stop there for today because we have our journal cover all ready to go, and I can put in a card here and have it set, but I do want to do a bit more decorating. I want to add some things inside, so make sure to come back tomorrow because I'll have it all done and I'll do a full flip through of everything all together finished up. So I hope that gives you some fun ideas. It's not the super simple and easy project that we normally do, and but it's once I got my head around how to put it together. It's not that hard. I was probably just overthinking. I was overthinking this pocket part of it, and believe it or not, I thought about that for about a week or two before I actually tried. But sometimes you just have to try things out, and then it starts to make sense. So I hope you had fun, and I hope this gives you some ideas, like I said, for you to try something different. And please come back tomorrow, and you'll see the whole finished project. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay crafty. Bye-bye.